Oh, shit.
No, Half-Life Alyx is not the best VR game. Half-Life Alyx has been a staple of the VR gaming space for a long time now. According to SteamDB, the concurrent player base of the game is actually higher than Pavlov. This game has been praised time and time again, and it tops pretty much every website's must-play list. But up until recently, I've never actually played much of it. In fact, up until about a month ago, I had less than 2 hours in it, and that was only to make sure that it worked. So, 3 years after its release, does Half-Life Alyx still deserve to be the poster child of VR? Before I get further into this video, I'd like to quickly clarify something. Half-Life Alyx is not a bad game, by any means. Last time I made a video where I criticized a game, a lot of people got very angry at me for not revealing the game was good until the end of the video. So I just want to clarify, the game is good. I still got captivated by Half-Life Alyx. Even 3 years after this game's release, I still played over 20 hours of the game. But over my time playing, there were a lot of things I didn't find very captivating. First of all, this game is really janky. I can't really find the words for it, but there were a lot of moments where the game's weird controls or movement caused me to die or have issues where I really shouldn't have. Grenades would sometimes just drop dead, it's hard to navigate the gun menus, and the blast radius are inconsistent, not to mention that enemies just act weird sometimes. It's not quite to the same level of physics jank that you see in other games, but it's enough weirdness that it gets in the way of the experience. There were many times where I got very frustrated at the game simply because the controls or interactions with objects were causing me to get stuck where I really shouldn't have. There's also just a lot of weird behavior that I've never seen in a VR game before, stuff that probably should have been fixed. I've had bugs where climbing a ladder makes my screen totally red, enemies don't spawn correctly, things not unlocking when they should, and even a bug where I would just fly off into space sometimes. Oh, and as for that last point, did I forget to mention that it happened 8 times? And it's not just the bugginess either. This game also has some actual game design issues. For instance, the locomotion in this game is not great. Now, I know the locomotion in this game is a very heated topic, but I still think it needs to be talked about. The locomotion options in this game are just bad. That's really all they are. At certain times, they're fine, but most of the time I really just hate them. Now, there are 2 main ways of locomotion in this game, teleporting and continuous. When this game first came out, teleporting was the only option, and this is what I went with since it's the one that Valve themselves endorsed. Plus, I've seen a lot of people complain that the continuous motion sucks. And it does. Normally, I like to play with continuous movement controls. I don't usually get very sick in VR, and I like the immersiveness of being able to move wherever I want. But by God, does the continuous motion in this game suck. First of all, it's slow, like really slow. It's slow enough, in fact, that some encounters actually just become way harder than they should because you just can't get out of danger fast enough. But it also just wasn't thought out very well. Since you can't jump, there's no way to climb over certain objects or jump over gaps, forcing you to have to teleport anyways. It just seems like Valve noticed people complained about the lack of continuous movement in the trailers, so they just tacked on the feature in a single day without actually testing it thoroughly. And honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I could talk all day about how the performance is horrible, the story's convoluted, the pacing is bad, etc. This game is flawed in a lot of ways. However, it's not a bad game. Half-Life Alyx is kinda like a duck. Now you're probably thinking, Cram, what the kind of analogy is that? But hear me out. My family has an old saying. The duck doesn't swim very well, the duck doesn't fly very well, and the duck sure as hell doesn't walk very well, but the duck is one of the best animals because it actually can do all of those things. Sure, the duck won't win in a fight individually. A falcon flies faster, a dolphin swims better, and a cheetah runs quicker. But the duck is one of the only animals that can do all of those if it needs to, and that is what makes the duck such a good animal. This is exactly how I feel about Half-Life Alyx. Sure, it's not the best VR game in any individual category, but it is so good because it hits every point it needs to. There are many VR games that have better graphics, there are many VR games that have better controls, there are many VR games that have better physics, better weapons, better puzzles, better stories, better replayability, better whatever. But there aren't really any VR games that are better at all of that compared to Half-Life Alyx. This game won't win any awards for anything on its own, but altogether, it's easy to see why this game tops everyone's list. Certain things on their own are bad, but together they create an experience like no other. For instance, the teleportation sucks, but in conjunction with the gunplay, it works really well. And like the graphics aren't perfect, and they sure as hell don't run great, but in combination with the story, it immerses you in the world so well. There were many times I just had my jaw to the floor because of something in the game. Every single level had something I didn't expect, even though 3 years later, the game had been mostly spoiled to me by this point. The world and scenery are fantastic, and the interactions you have with said world are brilliant. Everything comes together so well in this game, which is why when I played this game, I couldn't shake the feeling like this game really feels like a polished AAA title. And actually, it's really been the only AAA title for VR. Seriously, when it comes to finished, full-fledged VR games, Half-Life Alyx is really the only prime candidate. I literally cannot mention another VR game that has this long of a story with quality graphics and good gunplay and good puzzles and good everything else. It ticks all the boxes of what a modern AAA game should be, and this is how AAA games, let alone VR games, are done right. We're done with glorified tech demos, we're in a new age of VR here, and Half-Life Alyx shows it. This game should be topping everyone's VR list. But does that mean it's the best? I still stand by what I said at the beginning of this video. Half-Life Alyx is an amazing and incredible VR game, but it's not the best. The great experiences I had just don't outweigh the many problems I had. But I still 100% recommend this game, especially to those who are looking for a bit more out of VR. If you're tired of the many arcadey and oversimplified games out there, like the rest of us are, pick this up. Even 3 years later, it is still a one-of-a-kind experience.